The first real storm does not arrive with panic, it arrives with weight. She sensed it before the instruments acknowledged it, before the cabin shifted, before the sky darkened enough for fear to form words. The air ahead felt thick, as if the atmosphere itself had slowed down to think. She adjusted her posture in the seat, not out of nerves, but awareness. This was no longer training, this was no longer preparation, this was responsibility. The aircraft climbed steadily, engines humming with a familiarity that used to comfort her. Today, that sound felt different, heavier, more demanding, as if it expected something from her that it had never asked before. She glanced at the clouds ahead, not towering yet, not dramatic, just layered, dense, and patient. Storms, she had learned, did not rush. They waited. The co-pilot sat beside her, quiet but alert. His eyes moved between the instruments and the sky beyond the windshield. He had flown through turbulence before, enough to know when silence mattered more than conversation. She respected that. The seatbelt sign flickered on. In the cabin behind them, conversation softened. A few heads lifted. Someone adjusted their seat. Someone else closed a laptop and folded their hands together without realizing why. People always sensed change before they understood it. The first jolt came gently, not enough to alarm, enough to notify. She corrected slightly, fingers light on the controls. The aircraft responded immediately. Obedient and honest. Good. She exhaled slowly, grounding herself in the present moment. She did not rush. Rushing, she knew, was louder than fear. The clouds swallowed the horizon. Light faded. The cockpit dimmed, illuminated mostly by instruments and restraint. Turbulence increased, not sharp, not violent, but persistent. The kind that tests patience more than reflexes. The kind that makes you wonder how long it will last. She listened to the aircraft, to the air, to herself. The plane dipped suddenly, just enough to pull a breath from the cabin. A tray rattled. A child whimpered softly. Somewhere, someone laughed nervously, hoping humor could hold gravity in place. She checked the readings. Stable. Stressed, but stable. The storm was not dangerous yet, but it was growing. She considered her options carefully. Push through and shorten uncertainty, divert and extend it. Neither option came with applause, neither came with certainty. This was the part of flying no one talked about, decision-making without witnesses, choices that would never be remembered unless they were wrong. She chose the longer route, not because it was safer on paper, because it respected the storm instead of challenging it. She informed air traffic control. Her voice was steady, unremarkable, professional. No explanation beyond what was necessary. Calm, she understood, was contagious. In the cabin, the flight attendants delivered the softened version of truth. Just a bit of turbulence. But turbulence never felt small when you were inside it. The storm responded to the reroute with resistance. The aircraft shook harder now. Wind pressed against the fuselage with force that could be felt through the floor. Rain streaked across the windshield, blurring the world into motion and noise. A warning light blinked, then another. The co-pilot called out the readings, voice controlled but tight around the edges. She acknowledged each one without urgency. Her hand stayed steady. This was not the moment to prove anything. This was the moment to carry weight quietly. She felt pressure build not just in the aircraft, but inside herself. Not panic, responsibility. The knowledge that every movement mattered, that hundreds of people trusted a voice they could not see. She remembered sitting in the back row of a classroom, listening more than speaking, watching instructors trace storms on whiteboards, arrows and diagrams pretending to be weather. No one could teach what this felt like. The aircraft lurched sideways. Gasps filled the cabin. A baby cried openly now. The storm was testing her patience, not her skill. She made another adjustment. Smaller, slower, less forceful. She did not fight. She cooperated. A phrase surfaced in her mind, uninvited but welcome. Something she had once overheard, spoken quietly by a man who had carried storms before her. Storms don't need confidence, they need respect. She respected it. The turbulence intensified briefly, as if the sky objected to being handled gently. The plane shuddered, metal protesting, air pushing back. Oxygen masks trembled in their compartments but stayed put. Her breathing stayed even. Her voice stayed level. Her movements stayed economical. Minutes stretched into something shapeless. Time behaves strangely inside storms. It expands, contracts, refuses to be measured. The storm did not care how long it took. It cared about pressure. Gradually, so gradually, she almost doubted it. The turbulence softened, not gone, manageable. The warning lights blinked off one by one, like a conversation ending without argument. Rain thinned, the air loosened its grip. Ahead, the clouds lightened. The aircraft emerged into calmer sky, not suddenly, but with permission. In the cockpit, no one spoke. In the cabin, fear slowly dissolved into whispers, then silence, then relief. She did not smile. Not yet. They still had to land. The descent brought a different kind of tension. Systems had been stressed. Fuel calculations mattered now. The runway ahead waited narrow and honest. She aligned carefully. No heroics. No unnecessary corrections. The landing was firm, not graceful, but controlled. Wheels met runway with authority. The aircraft bounced once, then settled. Engines reversed. Speed bled away, then stillness. For a moment, there was only breathing, then applause, scattered at first. Hesitant, then spreading, filling the cabin with gratitude instead of fear. She leaned back slightly in her seat, letting the sound exist without claiming it. This was not victory. It was responsibility fulfilled. After the last passenger disembarked, she remained in the cockpit, hands resting lightly on the controls. She replayed the storm in her mind, not to celebrate, but to learn. Where she hesitated, where she trusted, where she listened instead of acted. Flying, she understood now, was not about dominance. It was about judgment. She exited the cockpit slowly. In the terminal hallway, she saw him. The retired pilot stood near the window, hands in his jacket pockets, casual clothing, relaxed posture, eyes shaped by years of knowing when to speak and when not to. He had not been on the flight, but he had been nearby. They stood together in silence, watching another plane taxi past the glass. "You didn't fight it," he said at last. She shook her head. "No." "You carried it," he replied. She nodded. There was nothing else to add. She walked away lighter than she had arrived, not because the storm was over, but because she finally understood what command meant. Authority isn't loud. Confidence doesn't rush. Leadership doesn't announce itself. It shows up when the storm does.